when he was 3 years old, I cut his locks. It was something significant in my life that allowed me to take my power back. Hey guys, welcome back to Is It Tuesday podcast. I'm Cris Cavallari. My dad just called and he has no idea. First of all, I'll just be telling y'all my business, right? My father just called and he is in Jamaica, Kingston, Jamaica. And my dad got deported when I was younger. And over the last couple of years, my son is 6. We FaceTime, I went to visit him. My son, unfortunately, has not had they haven't met in person yet because he didn't have his passport. And it's so hard to keep a secret because I don't like secrets. I don't like surprises. I don't even know if that's true that I don't like surprises. I think I've never experienced a surprise. Like I've never experienced a surprise birthday party, a surprise anything really. Surprise. Only surprise I've ever had in my past life was dealing with people that said that they was who they was and they wasn't. And it was like, I really believed it. But anyways, but that was kind of, it's not funny. But when I'm saying this, I'm really serious. I've never been surprised. I've never walked in somewhere and everybody turned the lights on surprise. I've never had that experience in my 39 years of living, right? I was able to surprise my father the last time I went to visit him. And unfortunately, that was before I, had Goliath. So this was probably 8 years ago. My son is 6, so I have not seen my dad in years. But we FaceTime and we chat and we're friends on Facebook and stuff like that. But my son, recently, maybe in this last year, he's always like, I miss your dad, and things like that. And I'm kind of like, what? And not surprised, but he's saying he misses him and he's never met him. So my mind starts to get to this place of I think grandparents are important. I think yard work with grandparents and, your grandmother just doing all these things. I think that those things are very important. And especially in the Black community, if your mother, unfortunately, if she was not around or not able and capable to raise you, your grandmother would. Most times it might be her mother, maybe it's your dad's mom, whoever, but your grandmother will play a huge role. And it's these new grandmoms, and shout out to the ones that still, but this is, I'm going to say, again, giving them grace because a lot of grandmothers now are young. So it's she ain't really get the opportunity to enjoy her life. So I get it. But the old grandmothers, they don't really exist anymore. They passed away or, I'm always very, in a healthy way, jealous of people that still have grandparents. Because I have questions for my grandparents. My dad's mom passed away when I was pregnant with my daughter. I was 16. My mom's mom passed away when I was 19 or 20. So the questions that I have now, I don't have any grandparents to answer them. You know what I'm saying? So when I think, and I've never met either one of my grandfathers because my mom's dad passed when she was 6. I'm not actually sure when my father's dad passed, but I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask though when we're in person. But long story short, my son has been literally out of nowhere crying, bawling, crying. And I'm like, what happened? I miss your dad. And I'm like, okay, I want to see him. But we didn't have a passport. And for years, I've been trying to obtain this boy's passport. And it's been conversations and it's never happened. It's never happened. Something always happened before we could get to that point. It was an agreement and then it just never happened, right? So recently, I was able to obtain my son's passport. And there's something that I want to start, I want to teach. And I'm trying to debate on when and how I want to introduce these small tips on how to deal with certain things. But because of the journey that I'm on, I want to make sure that my delivery to you is basically on a teaching experience. It's not a bitter, it's not an angry, it's just a teachable thing. The way that I was able to obtain my son's passport, and I know that this is the only reason and the only way I got it, is because the way that I'm communicating now in comparison to before. And now the way that I'm communicating and advocating for the things that I need is from a different standpoint, instead of a barking, and not that I was barking ever, but it's just taking away all of the emotion, and it is very much so a transactional thing. I've only was able to learn that from my lawyer. And I got to give you the backstory of how I was able to get this passport. And it'll be even funnier to know that the passport appointment day was on a Tuesday. Everything is happening to me on a Tuesday. Everything significant happened to people around me. It's like not a coincidence. It's like, oh yeah, this day. And I'm like, you know what today is? And they're like, I'm like, Tuesday. So now that I'm learning how to interact with people that we may not be on the same page, because I'm also learning not to use, learning to shift my perspective in talking about certain things. That's one of the things I wanted to teach, in my one-on-ones with, my clients, or, on a podcast, or just in regular relationships, in passing, that your perspective shifts everything. I was not able to obtain my son's passport for years. He's 6. But then I think about it like, shit, some people don't get their passport till they 30, 25, he's 6. And we got the paperwork and everything on a Sunday. And I was at the post office Monday doing some, random drop-offs that I needed to do, handle business. And I'm like, oh, do you guys have any appointments? And the lady's like, we have one tomorrow. And I'm like, Tuesday? Oh my God, it's tomorrow? I'm like, wait, what's tomorrow? Tuesday. Okay, we could do it Tuesday. I pick Goliath up early from school. I bring him a new shirt because he wears uniform. We go and get this passport. My father has no idea that my son is going to meet him very soon. Very, very, very soon. And it's overwhelming to me because my dad was, he got deported when I was younger. So there was an absence in that department. And when my dad FaceTimes Goliath, they have like this great relationship, and he don't even notice me, and he barely can understand him because his accent is so strong. But I'm just thinking about like how we'll be able to spend a week at a time in Jamaica at my grandmother's house that she left for my dad, or whoever she left, whatever. This is the family house that I was not able to spend as many summers there. It's crazy. Unfortunately, I was younger when I had my daughter. I wasn't able to take her. She did go multiple times, but I'm just thinking about how everything has shifted and we're in better positions to do the things that we actually desire. And when I go, I have, a list of questions that I want to, ask my dad about his family and just things we don't think about when we're younger. Like there's questions that you want to ask, like these grandparents, and sometimes we are so caught up in everything else that you're not really asking the questions that's gonna matter later when they're gone. The fact that we're gonna get on this airplane, we're gonna go to Kingston. My son, I tell him now, like, if when he got that passport, y'all, he ran around his house and I had to sit and I cried, of course. Why wouldn't I cry? I cry about everything, right? I cried because I thought about how he has a chance to know a little bit more about himself. And he doesn't realize that now, but later on in life, like, oh, I used to spend my summers in Jamaica with my grandfather. His locks are growing back. That was a big thing for me. When he was 3 years old, I cut his locks. And the reason that I cut his locks is because it was something significant in my life that allowed me to take my power back. I was devastated when the thought of cutting his hair was presented to me, and how it was presented to me, and how that one thing was like hanging over my head or being dangled over my head, like I'm gonna, X, Y, and Z. It was used as a tactic to get my gears going. And I think I'm finally ready to have this conversation, because the other day on Instagram, someone like put up a picture of herself in the sun, and she wrote this beautiful, whatever I said on this podcast, she wrote, we're healing so our kids won't need therapy for our fuck ups. I ain't saying me and my daughter don't need to go, because I didn't know better. But when she said that, I sent her a voice note just thanking her for being, here, being present, listening. And it's crazy because I never intended on me motivating anybody other than myself. After you come out of a dark situation and you've learned how to shift your perspective, you learned that everything that you say will manifest, good or bad. I feel like it's my duty to teach others because there's no way. I was always in my head. And sometimes I'm not going to say I'm not in my head. I know how to get out of there. I know how to maneuver through the maze of my thoughts now and just be like, I'm tripping. And I always have that opportunity to look back and be like, this was like survival of the fittest. Only the strong survive. But you only survive when you train. Like people, you're not going to survive if you don't train. You're not going to survive if you're just sitting around lamenting on it. You have to train. You have to have stamina. You have to really get your mind aligned with how you got to be sharp with it. You have to take those emotions out of it. You have to watch how you're speaking about it. I'm not even speaking in code. Before I was speaking code to protect others. Now I'm speaking from a higher level of understanding to protect what I'm manifesting. Now I'm speaking from a place of experience. Like these things are old. Anything that I'm speaking about is at least a year, 2 years, 3 years, years. So I'm not even speaking on it from a place of anger, bitterness. I'm speaking from a professor standpoint. What would my professor name be? Professor Crystal, Professor Cris, Professor Cavallari? Like, what would it be? But anyway, I'm speaking on it because I wish that when I was speaking about it while I was going through it, I had somebody to say to me, listen, I understand this, I understand that, but let's shift this. Let's change our thinking on this. Instead of like, we have sat around and blew air to a fire. We've added more gasoline just by repeating it, and you got to tell everybody this story. You got to just get these people on your side. I've done that in all types of situations that I've realized I kept this thing alive longer than it needed to be alive. I've given CPR to this dead thing, and I brought it back to life. This thing was almost healing. It's like a scab. If you leave a scab alone, it'll heal, but when you pick it, it'll bleed. I leave it alone. You can look at it. You can care, you can care for it, put a little ointment on it. You can change the gauze on it. But once you start picking it, poking at it, peeling the scab off because it looks healed. Some of y'all probably used to eat y'all scabs. You remember that? Your cousins, you probably ate your scab. But I know that we like to pick things. Once I started keeping things to myself, speaking about them in a different perspective, in a different mindset, I realized how I looked up, and it was 3 years later. So when I'm going to speak about this situation is because it's 3 years later, and it hurt me to the core. It hurt me to the core until I took my power back. I think that was the beginning of my healing. And I didn't even realize I was doing it. I didn't know that that's what I was doing when I did it. It was Thanksgiving 3 years ago. I was getting my hair braided in my loft apartment. Goliath had his locks. It was very clear that my father was deported, and when he would FaceTime, he would see my son's hair. He would get overly excited that his grandson has locks. My dad used to have locks to his ankles. And it would be like a connection. Like I always felt like he would see his grandson and just be so and just joyful, like, look at him, And it was Thanksgiving 3 years ago. Goliath left, and I was told that he's getting a haircut tomorrow, which was Black Friday. I'm a business owner. I have a big sale coming tomorrow. My shoes were stuck in Philly, so I had to rent a U-Haul to come to Philly to pick them up from, the shipping distribution center. It was so many things going on. And while I was getting my hair braided at my house, this is a message I received. Yeah, he's getting his hair cut tomorrow. And I called and I'm begging, like, please don't cut his hair. We didn't agree on that. Please don't do this. Yeah, I'm eating right now. Click. Don't call us. We're busy. Click. And I sat there. I was embarrassed because this girl's in my house braiding my hair. And she's a stranger. Not a stranger, but she's now in my business because she's hearing all of this. And I could barely think straight. At the time, it's Black Friday. I have all these things going on. I get my hair braided the next day. My heart is racing. My anxiety is going through the roof. I woke up the next day, Black Friday, and I'm like, shit, the shoes aren't delivered. We got to rent a U-Haul. We're ripping and running. So I eventually get the text message with the location to the barbershop. Nothing but God himself. This is nothing but God himself. Where the barbershop was at least 20 minutes away from my home. I would have never made it in time if I was at home. But because of God, I was already in the area. And I got there first. And I went into this beautiful establishment and I introduced myself and I said, hey, this is what's going to happen. Like, my son's getting a haircut today. This is not something I agreed on. But if he says he wants a haircut, he's going to get a haircut. If he doesn't want a haircut, you'll be compensated, but we're going to go ahead and go. I'm a business owner too, so I'm not here to cause no drama, no nothing. I'm just letting you know that this is not something I agreed on. Goliath pulls up. He sees me. He runs to me, mommy, gives me a hug. And he says, I said, you ready? No, I said, you ready to get your haircut? He said, what? I'm not getting a haircut. I'm too little. We sat down. He didn't want to get a haircut, so we left. And at that moment when we left, he was home with me for 6 months after that. And I knew that sparked that 6 months hiatus where he was home. It was because I was challenging a situation and it didn't work out the way that it was planned. It was planned to destroy me. It was planned to disrupt my peace. It was planned to distract me, and it didn't. We left. I dropped him off to my mother's house and I proceeded to go to work. On that Black Friday, when all of these things were going on, I was able to make $40,000. The crazy part about it is I couldn't really celebrate like this milestone in my career of entrepreneurship because there was so many other small factors going on. I went to dinner with two friends and they were busy talking about their problems and not my accomplishment. There was so many little things that the devil was doing. And that's another thing, because when I'm speaking about this, I want you to understand the enemy will use people that are closest to you. So we're not even giving credit, attention, or shade to anybody that's played any role in anything. This is not about them. And when you start to talk about things that have hurt you, I want you to understand that there's some people in your life that are karmics, that are here to teach you a lesson. They are going to be a catalyst in your growth. And the only way that you can grow through it is if you go through it. And now that I'm ready to talk about this is because I've gotten so many questions. Oh, what? You guys here? I remember you talking about it during your pregnancy, how you wanted him to have locks and you wanted it like this, and it was growing, and he had one vaccination and his hair completely fell out. So I was really educating my Instagram family on what vitamins I was giving him, how my son is, I'm doing certain things. He was not eating meat. These are all things that were happening. Like, he never ate meat. Then one day he would come home, he's eating meat, and he's like going crazy if somebody makes some turkey bacon. And I'm like, well, when the hell did he have turkey bacon? But what I'm saying is, when you're talking about it, and when you're understanding even on your own, when you're journaling about it, when you're discussing it, I want you to understand the way you speak about things matter. The way you put it out into the universe matters. If you're speaking on it from this place, like, yeah, and then let me tell you what he did. Let me tell you, you just breathing life into it. So anytime I think that respectfully, one or two people may have been like, oh my God, I can't believe you guys here. But they never went too deep into my business, because I think that I've had a decent boundary line, right? For these 6 months that my son was home, this is the first time that he experienced a change in his something that abruptly disrupted his schedule. My business just started taking off. But this time God showed me something. God said, okay, you did all of this with him on your hip. You can continue. And I had a partner at the time who was so hands-on that helped me through this time in my life seamlessly. I had a support system that helped me. I had my girlfriend, Alana, who helped me. I had my sister and my mom who were there. While we're home during this 6 months, and now he's in school and he has different friends and they have different haircuts, and, we're approaching, mediation in the courts. And before we even went back, I said, way before, months before, I was like, the time's going to come when he has to leave again. And I don't want to be threatened with, I'm going to cut his hair. I didn't even think about it in the power, like I'm going to take my power back. I know what to do. It just was like, let's just cut it. Goliath and I were home. And I said, do you want to get a haircut? He said, yeah. It was bedtime. I went, I got the scissors. We sat down in front of a mirror. And I handed him the scissors, and I helped him, of course. I guided him, and he cut his hair. And I put it in a baggie. I cried that night so hard, but it felt like the greatest burden, the greatest thing that was heavy on me, just loosened up. And it was not a good haircut. It was not a good haircut. We just picked him up and cut it. So it was all uneven, no shape up, no nothing. And the next day, his godfather came over and he cleaned it up for me. At that time, I wasn't even posting my son that much on social media, which I used to share a lot of us building things and just we play with our little toys and just all of these things that we would do. But I just stopped posting him because I didn't want people asking me the question, well, why did you cut his hair? Because it was too tender. It was a scab that hasn't even hardened yet. So I just didn't do it. And I realized now that pause, I didn't stop doing what I was doing, but what I was doing was done differently. I was fragile. I had to nurse myself back to the strength that I used to have. I was dealing with a very unhealthy situation. If you do this, this is a reaction to you doing this, and this is that. And at that time, I had like surgery. It was so many little things going on. But at that moment when I cut his hair, that was a cord cutting ceremony. That was me taking my power back. This thing has been held over my head for so long that I'm just gonna knock it down, because sometimes we think there's something that's bigger than what it really is. How about we just eliminate this thing? So that way I don't have to beg and plead. That way I don't have to be nervous every time he comes back home to see if he's going to have a haircut and see if his ponytail is going to be pulled out and see if this is going to happen and see if I'm going to get backlash and see if I'm just going to dead that shit. I still have his locks there in the freezer. You know, we take them out sometimes. I smell them. And now, 3 years later, his locks are back. And he says all the time, like, oh, look at my hair. My hair is so cool. And I didn't realize it. I didn't realize at that moment is where my healing from one thing, because there's multiple things that happens in your life, but my healing started when I did that cord cutting. I'm not ever going to tell you, if you do it yourself, you won't have to worry about it, because there's some people that be like, you know, forget your feelings, just go hard and work. No, it's not that. And even that is shifting your perspective. If you are capable of taking care of yourself, managing things, and not to say that it's super easy, but if you're capable of managing things, you're not going to allow anything and anyone to distract you, right? Because it's like, I mean, why would I let this one thing that doesn't mean anything? I could put it this way. Why would I keep calling somebody, asking them to bring me milk instead of just going to put my shoes on and going to get the milk myself? Right? How long do you have to wait for somebody to do something before you just say, fuck it, I got it myself? That's one thing that I wish that we did not have to go through. But a lot of people, not just women, a lot of people feel like, you know what? Fuck it. Don't even worry about it. I got it. Because you have to understand that I can depend on me. So if I'm only dependent on me, why am I letting something so minute as a haircut hold me hostage? It's like the key's right there. All you gotta do is pick it up and unlock it. Shifting your thought process with it is like crazy. Because I really was like, I was being held hostage for a year about something that took me 5 minutes to do. And now that I was obedient with myself and I listened and I just said, I don't feel like this control game. And I cut it myself, everything just was like, whew. Once he left again, his shit was already cut. There's nothing else you can hold over my head. It's already cut. Okay, you want to, get him a shape up and do this. I think that he got a haircut maybe twice. And then every haircut since then, I've taken him for the last 2-3 years. But it's about choosing your battles wisely and choosing to untangle yourself out of a web that somebody may have put you in, or, Webs are like spiders. I think I wrote this down somewhere in my journal. Spiders have this beautiful, they make these webs. And if you ever really study a spider web, it's really beautiful. And I feel like the insects that get caught in the spider webs, they're always like, hey, what's that? Like curiosity, like, let me see. And they go and they get in this web and then they're stuck. A lot of things are an illusion. A lot of things are things that we can get out of just by shifting our thought process, using our minds, not our hearts. 'Cause sometimes these hearts, we have these great hearts sometimes, and it keeps us, your mind will keep you trapped and your heart will be the reason you got into that bullshit. But when I thought about all of that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's when it switched. That's when everything switched. Oh, okay, I'm good now. When I'm telling you this story, I'm only telling you to say everything that I was sad about is now back. Everything that I released came back. It may be something small as a haircut, but that small thing had a big hold on me. It had a big hold on me. It played a major role in what I'm still dealing with to this day. Or actually, I'm not dealing with it because it's over on my side. When I got that passport, I sat and I thought about all the things that tried to stop me from getting to the next step and the next level. And I realized none of it stopped me. Because instead of playing tug of war, I let go of the rope. I don't even play these games anymore. And I'm not saying where it's you're playing when you're in it, but you got to realize this is a game. I could forfeit this motherfucker. I could stop playing. I could stop playing. You mean to tell me if I stop playing, I win? You mean I can focus on the thing that I can control, which is myself? I don't have to engage in these things. I can switch this. I could switch it up. You mean to tell me I wrote in a pencil and I can erase this and rewrite it simply by changing my mind and how I deal with it? When my dad calls and he sees Goliath, he doesn't know that Goliath got his passport. I just used to tell him, Daddy, I'm trying to get his passport. Like, I got to get another signature. They're not just going to let you just get a passport and take this kid somewhere. I'm going to tell you, it was nothing but sometimes what you think is rejection is God protection. What you think is a setback is really a not yet. What you think is like no is just a hold on. Once I stopped lamenting over it, once I stopped breathing life into it, everything just started coming so easily. Sometimes people will set a trap, a beautiful, beautiful spider web. You ever walk through a spider web? You be like, what the fuck? Remember that news reporter? He was in the wilderness and the thing, and he reported something, and the bugs was like, what the fuck? That's how it is when you walk through a spider web, because you're like, what the hell? But when you look at it, it's like, wow, that's so beautiful. You don't want to walk through no spider web, but you want to look at it. That's what I've learned. It's like, this looks nice. But when I got close up on it, I seen a lot of traps, a lot of little bugs, a lot of little gnats, a lot of little things, flies stuck in there. Fighting to get out. This is what you gotta really do. You have to watch like the Animal Planet Discovery Channel situation, and you have to see when it's like animals being like preyed upon, and then like you think they're gonna die and the fish flies out of the alligator's mouth, or it's just some type of miracle. Like how did that gazelle get away? Like how? Because it wasn't your time. Like I really be looking at everything like that now. Like, hey, You gotta stay alert. You gotta be eyes and ears. You have to be in receiving mode of what's really going on. And how can if I relax my body, I could probably get out of this. If I just sit and think about it instead of just going fast and, not paying attention, I could think my way out of this. I can get my way out of this. Maybe if I'm positioned here, it's for a reason too. God has showed me so many things in these last 3 years. If you've beat some situations, that they be like, if you did it, then you'll do it again. And plus what you do small, you do big. Even if it seems like a lot, I'll be like, I prayed for this. How abundant am I to sit around and think like you can do all of these things. You can get out of these situations. Now you know better. When I think about the passport and I think about the haircut and I think about how these things were like traps for me to go off, for me to have a attitude, or for me to feel like there's no way around it, I found loopholes around it. I can't wait to dive deeper in this situation because, like I said, now we're coming from a teachable standpoint. We're not coming from a let's gang up and have a trauma bond. I was only able to obtain this passport after the second time of something happening, and now only being able to communicate via a parenting app where everything's documented, that I was able to obtain that passport. And what the trap that someone sets up for you, what the old people say, when you dig one grave, make sure you dig another, because they're gonna fall in it. You have to be mindful that anything done in malice, anything done with ill intentions will never prevail. They may form, the weapons may form, but they will never prosper. If you're doing your part, if you're remaining obedient, if you still walking with that light in your heart, if you're choosing to be on the light side of things, everything will work out. I got a message from a mom, like I was saying before, I got a message from a mom. She sent me this voice note and I sent her one back, and she was just saying like, y'all was crying. I was like, damn, we on Instagram crying in this DM, and that's why I don't open my DMs. But I am no longer sharing things to trauma bond. I am sharing things to teach you how to get through it. I am here to tell you that I've always been a firecracker. I've always had to get the last word. Now I don't match energy. I remove myself. I pray on it. I change my perspective. I just do the things like I really breathe life into myself. So when we dive deeper and we talk about these situations, this is not a moment of us to be like, oh yeah, girl, because that happened to me too. It's me telling you, baby, it gets easier. It gets easier, it gets better. It doesn't get easier because it goes away. It gets easier because you know how to deal with it. I am beyond like, I was able to get this passport. I was able to listen to my lawyer and start talking like a business, like this is a business, that this is it. This is not about what somebody did 6 years ago. This is just solely to get you to the other side. I only want to talk about what matters. I only want to talk about this. I don't care about anybody's feelings. I just want to know, how can we get to the other side? Like, okay, everybody's feelings is valid, but this ain't that. So how we get over here? So I'm no longer, I know some of y'all be at work and y'all be texting boyfriends and, friends like, oh, this is what's going on. I ain't adding fuel to the fire. I'm grabbing the extinguisher. We're going to talk about it more. But baby, let me tell you, when my dad calls and I hear his voice and I am planning to surprise him with his grandson, with his locks, I think about them locks and I think about that passport and I think about how those two big things are now, it's nothing. It's nothing. I'm still being respectful in the way I speak about it because I don't breathe life into dead things. I leave them dead. So I know it's going to be like, well, wait, what else happened? Nothing. But I'll tell you the steps that I got and I took to make it nothing. Oh, so what's going on with you? Nothing. Everything, all is well because all is source. All is handled. Everything is infinite. We're good. Because sitting on the phone cackling, finding Justin LeBoy memes and on these single mom pages, like bashing, that keeps us in that mindset. Listening to these songs keeps us in these mindset. We are not doing that this year. We're not doing that this year. We're learning from our mistakes and we're applying these lessons and we're applying the things that we've learned from these lessons in life moving forward. I thank you guys. I know y'all be wanting all the tea, but I don't have tea. I just have lessons. Everything is not, maybe tea to you is testimony for me. And I am going to really, really enjoy giving you the blueprint on how to get back to yourself. Tune in next week for more. Like, comment, and subscribe below.